Hello everyone, how are you all doing today? I hope that you are all doing very, very well and having an amazing Friday. So today, I wanted to discuss with everyone the Canadian multi-level marketing laws because it is my plan to get these things better regulated or even made illegal and seen as pyramid schemes, whatever we can do here in Canada as we go forward this next year with my channel. So a great way to start that is if we go through all of the Canadian MLM laws, better understand them, and then from there we can start discussing what our plans are going forward to make these moves here in Canada. I have not touched a dime that I have made with my channel. It is all going into this. So, without further ado, as a Canadian, yes, we are going to be going through Canada's MLM laws. The nitty-gritty laws. I know this video might be slightly boring to some of you, I'm sorry, but I am in Ottawa, and therefore I am close to Parliament, and that makes me feel like I'm the girl for the job. So let's get going. We are going to be talking about the laws in terms of being an entrepreneur, running your own business, except if you in an MLM, you're not running your own business, but we'll get more into that. So let's get into it. We are going to be going through the Government of Canada website, so I will leave the links down in the description below that I use in this video like I always do. And we are going to be discussing sections 55 and 55.1 of the Competition Act, because that is the part of the Competition Act that goes into details about multi-level marketing plans and schemes of pyramid selling, the differences, the laws surrounding it, blah, blah, blah. So we are going to be going through that. This bulletin describes the nature of and the difference between a multi-level marketing plan, an MLM plan, and a scheme of pyramid selling as outlined in sections 55 and 55.1 of the Competition Act. It also describes the general principles and policies applied by the Bureau with respect to these provisions. The Competition Act. The Competition Act, the Act, is a law of general application that establishes basic principles for the conduct of business in Canada. The purpose of the Act is to maintain and encourage competition thereby. Number 1, promoting the efficiency and adaptability of the Canadian economy. Number 2, expanding opportunities for Canadian participation in world markets while recognizing the role of foreign competition in Canada. Number 3, ensuring small and medium-sized enterprises have equal opportunity to participate in the Canadian economy. And number 4, providing consumers with competitive prices and product choices. The role of the Competition Bureau. The Competition Bureau is an independent agency that contributes to the prosperity of Canadians by protecting and promoting competitive markets and enabling informed consumer choice. Headed by the Commissioner of Competition, name makes sense, right? The Bureau is responsible for the administration and enforcement of the Competition Act, the Consumer Packaging and Labeling Act, the Textile Labeling Act, and the Precious Metals Marking Act. When there has been a contravention or violation of the law, the Bureau's objective is to correct anti-competitive activities and deter responsible firms and individuals from future anti-competitive conduct. The Bureau also encourages firms to set up corporate compliance programs to ensure they adopt policies and practices that conform with the law. The Bureau emphasizes education and voluntary compliance to limit the need for contested legal proceedings and consequently works to inform businesses and other stakeholders about the laws. Through its advocacy program, the Bureau actively promotes a competitive marketplace and contributes to the development of competition policy legislation. The Bureau's commitment to educating the marketplace is complemented by several forms of voluntary compliance. These range from written opinions, which assist businesses that want to avoid breaking the law, to alternative case resolutions, which correct anti-competitive behavior in a timely and cost-effective fashion. Businesses and individuals who disregard the law or fail to take advantage of opportunities for voluntary compliance may be prosecuted by the Public Prosecution Service of Canada in criminal court or be subject to civil litigation by the Bureau before the Competition Tribunal or in a civil court. So in a lot of ways, the Bureau is a lot like the Federal Trade Commission. Let's take a look at the overview of multi-level marketing plans and pyramid selling schemes. Multi-level marketing plans. An MLM plan is a plan with 3 or more levels. Okay, that's important. The operator and at least 2 levels of participants. So here in Canada, if a company has 3 or more levels, it can be considered an MLM. Okay, that's one of the first things. That promotes the supply of a product to participants of the plan. The other thing that makes it an MLM is that compensation is earned by participants in the MLM plan based on the supply of the product to participants and or non-participants of the MLM plan. Now, notice how they ensured to include the supply of the product to the participants. I just have to bring it up. That's mainly because when you are in an MLM, to be honest, the Huns are the main customers. A legitimate MLM plan focuses on the supply of products rather than the recruitment of prospective participants into the MLM plan and offers products that consumers value and are willing to purchase. To prevent the deception of prospective participants, if an operator or a participant makes any representation about the compensation that is or may be earned under the MLM plan, the operator or participant making the representation must disclose the compensation received by typical participants in the MLM plan. So, the FTC in the USA has made a similar law where whenever they share what they make, right, what their compensation is, they need to share their income disclosure statement. And as you can see here in Canada, we have the same. Often a product purchase, such as a distributor kit, is required to participate in an MLM plan. Often, but not always. If the operator of an MLM plan requires a person to purchase a product to participate in the MLM plan, then the product must be sold at the seller's cost and only for the purpose of facilitating sales. In other words, there is a law here in Canada, and I'm pretty sure there's one in the US as well, that says that if they are selling to the participants in the MLM, they have to give them a discount. So no, the company is not doing that because they want to see your success in the company, in the business. No, they're doing that because they have to by law. Definition of a multi-level marketing plan. And I know the people on my channel are going to be like, oh, geez, we've gone through this a bazillion times. I know, but it is important to make the definitions of this while we're talking about this, right? So subsection 55(1) of the Act defines an MLM plan as a plan in which a participant receives compensation for the supply of a product to another participant, who in turn receives compensation for the supply of the same or another product to yet another participant in the MLM plan, and then of course, etc. Subsections 55(2) and 55(2.1 set out certain obligations relating to compensation disclosure by operators of and participants in MLM plans. Failure to comply with these obligations is subject to criminal penalties as set out in subsection 55(3). Schemes of pyramid selling. It does sound a lot more fancy than just saying pyramid selling schemes, doesn't it? A scheme of pyramid selling is a form of an MLM plan focused primarily on generating earnings through recruitment. These schemes may offer products. Okay, so again, stop out there, ya huns. Don't be telling me, well, it's not a pyramid scheme because we sell a product. So listen, these schemes may offer products. However, the products may have very little value, or the plan may offer limited incentives for their sale. Income in the scheme is derived primarily from the money prospective participants pay to join the scheme and not from the sale of product. Okay. Often, schemes of pyramid selling promise huge wealth and financial security to their participants. Sounds like MLMs too. They usually require the participant to pay to join. This payment may be described as an enrollment fee, a membership fee, or an investment into a money-making enterprise. In addition to payment, participants are typically told that they must recruit others into the MLM plan, who in turn must recruit others before they are able to earn any money. Given the finite pool of potential recruits, pyramid schemes are inherently unsustainable and eventually collapse. Although a small number of participants at the top of the pyramid may make money, the overwhelming majority of participants lose their money. Schemes of pyramid selling are illegal under both the Act and the Criminal Code. Definition of a scheme of pyramid selling. Section 55(1) of the Act defines a scheme of pyramid selling as an MLM plan with one or more of the following features. Number 1, requires a payment for the right to receive compensation for recruiting others into the MLM plan. Compensation for recruitment. Number 2, requires purchases as a condition of participation, a purchase requirement other than a specified amount of product at the seller's cost for the purpose of facilitating sales. Number 3, includes inventory loading. I bet you can think of MLMs in your mind right now that do that, right? And number 4, lacks a buyback guarantee on reasonable commercial terms, or participants are not informed about the guarantee. It is a criminal offense to establish, operate, advertise, or promote a scheme of pyramid selling. Which is why ya huns better be careful. We do this for your safety too, okay? So these are the definitions of the key terms that will be used in this. An operator is a person or entity who is responsible for an MLM plan. An MLM plan may have more than one operator. For example, if an MLM plan is operated by a corporation, any individual who is the directing mind of the corporation or who directs the making of a representation relating to compensation on the corporation's behalf is also responsible for ensuring compliance with the MLM provisions of the Act. Prospective participant. A prospective participant is an individual who has expressed interest in joining an MLM plan or who has been approached by a current participant or the operator of the MLM plan to supply the product to others with the prospect of earning compensation under the MLM plan. Oh no, we're all prospective participants out here. Participant. A participant in an MLM plan is an individual who actively engages in the activities necessary to realize the benefits of the MLM plan. A participant in an MLM plan has joined the MLM plan, has the right to sponsor others in the MLM plan, and has the right to sell products to others. Typical participants. Typical participants are representative of the smallest range of compensation earned by over 50% of the participants in the MLM plan. Where an MLM plan sets out defined levels of compensation and no single level accounts for the majority of participants, greater than 50%, reference must be made to the fewest levels that together include a majority of the participants. Thus, the average compensation of participants in an MLM plan is not normally considered to reflect the compensation that typical participants receive or are likely to receive, because the average can be skewed upward by a few high-income earners, right? It's just the way math works. For the purposes of this calculation, the Bureau excludes individuals who have been participants for less than 1 year. Representations relating to compensation. A representation relating to compensation is any statement, declaration, or image that conveys a message about the compensation a person could expect to earn as a participant of an MLM plan. A representation relating to compensation is not limited to a dollar figure or monetary range, but may also include representations about obtaining as a result of compensation under the MLM plan, luxury goods such as vehicles, jewelry, watches, homes, and vacation destinations. This could include images of such luxury items where the general impression created by the context in which the images appear is that the items can be obtained as a result of compensation under the MLM plan. How many hunbots did you think of when I read that? Promises of opportunities to earn bonuses, commissions, and other financial rewards. Profiles of individuals who have been unusually successful in earning money in the MLM plan. Similar representations as those above that are made in testimonials and testimonials from people who claim that as a result of compensation under the MLM plan, they were able to improve their quality of life, quit their jobs, or eliminate all their debts. Operator's cost or seller's cost. Operators or seller's cost is the cost that the operator of an MLM plan or another seller incurs to acquire a product. This includes their direct costs of labor, materials, handling, and shipping, but does not include any markup by the seller or allocation of indirect overhead costs. Thus, where a participant in an MLM plan gives consideration for a certain amount of product as a condition of participating in the plan, the act requires that the operator or other sellers supply the product to the participant at a price no greater than the cost incurred by the operator or other seller to produce or acquire the product. Disclosure requirements. Subsection 55(2) prohibits an operator or a participant of an MLM plan from making representations relating to compensation to a prospective participant without fair, reasonable, and timely disclosure of the information within the knowledge of the operator or the participant relating to A. Compensation actually received by typical participants in the MLM plan, or B. Compensation likely to be received by typical participants in the MLM plan having regard to any relevant considerations, including the factors listed in paragraph 55(2)(b). Subsection 55(2.1) requires an operator of an MLM plan to ensure that any representations relating to compensation under the MLM plan that are made to a prospective participant by a participant of the MLM plan or a representative of the operator constitute or include fair, reasonable, and timely disclosure of the information within the knowledge of the operator relating to A. Compensation actually received by typical participants in the MLM plan, or B. Compensation likely to be received by typical participants in the MLM plan, having regard to any relevant considerations, including the factors listed in paragraph 55(2)(b). Subsection 55(2.2) provides that an operator shall not be convicted of an offense under subsection 55(2.1) if the operator establishes that he or she took reasonable precautions and exercised due diligence to ensure that no representations relating to compensation under the plan were made by participants or representatives of the operator, or that any representation made by participants or representatives of the operator constituted or included fair, reasonable, and timely disclosure. So this is an example. The circumstance, it says the operator of an MLM plan states that the following amounts of compensation were received by the given percentage of participants in the MLM plan during the last year. Okay. A typical participant in the above situation would be someone who earned between $2,001 and $4,000 a year because this range represents the fewest levels that include more than 50%, in this case it's 60%, of the participants in the MLM plan. Right. It would be these ones. Right? Because they have the larger number of participants. So most would probably make in there. If the operator were to make representations, such as 60% of participants made between $2,001 to $4,000, or typical participants made between $2,001 to $4,000, or the operator set out the above table in connection with any other compensation representation, no issues would likely be raised under the Act. So if they posted up them holding a bunch of money even and said, woohoo, most of us make about $3,000 in this thing, but then they posted up the income disclosure statement that we see here, at least showing the real numbers, then they would still be safe. If the operator were to make a representation relating to compensation such as earn more than $7,000 per year, or many participants earn more than $7,000 last year, without disclosing the compensation actually received by typical participants in the plan, an issue would likely be raised under the Act. And again, they would not post up this, because even if they said that, as long as they posted up the income disclosure, they are technically still representing the correct numbers when they do that. They just look a little silly, right? But it's not against the law under the Act. Operators and participants may make representations about compensation received by non-typical participants as long as the required information about compensation of typical participants is also disclosed at the same time. See? However, reference to non-typical participants should not be made in any way that detracts from the representations regarding typical participants. With reference to example 1, an operator could represent that 15% of participants earn between $8,001 and $10,000, as long as the earnings for typical participants, so that's 60% made between the $2,001 to $4,000, were also disclosed. Again, it's as simple for them to do as post up the income disclosure statement with any time that they talk about anything that they make. Compensation likely to be received. New multi-level marketing plans. An operator or participant making a representation about compensation in a new MLM plan must disclose the information within his or her knowledge relating to compensation likely to be received by typical participants, having regard to any relevant considerations, including the factors listed in paragraph 55(2)(b) of the Act. Number 1, the nature of the product, including its price and availability. Number 2, the nature of the relevant market for the product. Number 3, the nature of the plan and similar plans. And number 4, whether the operator of the plan is a corporation, partnership, proprietorship, or other form of business organization. An operator or participant making a representation about likely compensation should consider any assumptions made and the resulting compensation estimates to ensure that they are realistic and reliable. Compensation levels in new MLM plans should be reviewed after 6 months from commencement to ensure that there is no major discrepancy between the disclosure of the stated levels of compensation likely to be received and the levels of compensation actually being received by typical participants in the plan. After 1 year, the operator of an MLM plan should disclose compensation actually received by typical participants instead of any projected compensation forecasts. Foreign MLM plan operators wishing to expand operations into Canada, so that includes people in the USA, may make representations relating to compensation based on that plan's foreign compensation history. Basing information on a foreign history is conditional on the operator establishing that there are sufficient similarities between the foreign MLM plan and the proposed Canadian MLM plan, such as number 1, type of product, number 2, market conditions, and number 3, demographic similarities. Compensation actually received by typical Canadian participants should be used after 1 year and reviewed and updated annually. So here in Canada, the income disclosure statements for companies need to actually be updated annually. Fair, reasonable, and timely disclosure. So it's of course important that we know what exactly that means, right? If they have to disclose everything fair and reasonably and timely, we need to obviously define what that is. So the act requires that representations relating to compensation constitutes or include fair, reasonable, and timely disclosure of information within the knowledge of the person making the representations relating to compensation actually received or likely to be received by typical participants. The Bureau considers that in order for disclosure to be fair, reasonable, and timely, it must, number 1, be accurate. Number 2, be clear. So for example, of an appropriate size and in legible font if written at an appropriate speed if oral and presented in a comprehensible manner. Number 3, be presented in close proximity to any other representation relating to compensation. For example, on the same page of a written document or immediately before or after the representation in an oral or audio or video presentation. Number 4, have similar prominence to other representations. Example, not be buried in a footnote. Number 5, relate to compensation of typical participants as defined above. Number 6, include a description of the amount of time and effort that would be necessary to earn a particular level of compensation under the MLM plan. Number 7, ensure that prospective participants learn what a typical participant would earn in a year. Number 8, be available to participants and prospective participants looking for information about compensation levels. And number 9, be updated after 6 months of operation in the case of a new MLM plan and annually thereafter, using the most recent findings and data regarding what its participants earn. So now let's get into due diligence. Pursuant to Section 55 2.1, an operator may be prosecuted if improper representations relating to compensation are made by participants or by representatives of the operator. To avoid liability under this section, the operator must establish that he or she took reasonable precautions and exercised due diligence to ensure either that A, participants or representatives of the operator do not make representations relating to compensation, or B, any such representations constitute or include fair, reasonable, and timely disclosure. In order to establish due diligence, operators must make sufficient efforts to communicate their policies and procedures regarding compensation representations to all participants of the plan. As well, operators must demonstrate that sufficient efforts to prevent wrongdoing are in place and any wrongdoing is corrected. And this is why so many companies have a compliance area. Operators are encouraged to clearly and frequently communicate their policies and procedures about compensation representations to participants and prospective participants. In addition, operators should implement effective sanctions against those participants who do not comply with those policies and procedures. In short, the greater the effort by operators to ensure that participants are aware of and follow their policies, the more likely that due diligence will be established. And this is why it is not your own business when you run an MLM, because you are not considered the actual operator as defined here. And also, if you don't do this, they can kick you out of the MLM. As indicated in the Bureau's Information Bulletin on Corporate Compliance Programs, a credible and effective corporate compliance program, and documented evidence of compliance measures may support a claim of due diligence by enabling a business to demonstrate that it took reasonable steps to avoid contravening the law. The 5 essential elements that should be incorporated in any corporate compliance program are senior management involvement and support, corporate compliance policies and procedures, training and education, monitoring, auditing, and reporting mechanisms, and consistent disciplinary procedures and incentives. Obtaining a written opinion from the Bureau about a proposed MLM plan and ensuring that the plan is operated in the manner described in the opinion request may also assist in establishing due diligence. So here we have another example, and the circumstance is a participant eager to recruit other participants to an MLM plan tells a prospective participant that he can earn $1,000 a week under the MLM plan. Comment: if this representation does not constitute or is not accompanied by fair, reasonable, and timely disclosure of the compensation received by or likely to be received by typical participants, the participant is likely contravened subsection 55(2). In addition, the MLM plan operator has likely contravened subsection 55(2.1), unless the operator establishes that he or she took reasonable precautions and exercised due diligence to ensure that participants comply with subsection 55(2.2). Okay, now here's the part you have to really pay attention to with that. The operator can establish that they took the reasonable precautions. However, the Hun is stuck getting in trouble for breaking their laws and making that statement. And that's what's kind of scary about that part. All right, here we have another one. So a company operates an MLM plan in which participants make representations relating to compensation. The operator gives participants and prospective participants information relating to compensation received by typical participants in the MLM plan. The information is dated and the operator has not reviewed the information to ensure that it remains accurate. This example outlines a situation where a due diligence defense could not be established by the operator if participants make representations related to compensation that are inaccurate because the information was not updated by the operator. So that's when it falls on the operator, or in other words, like the CEOs of the MLM company. Features of a scheme of pyramid selling. Compensation for the recruitment of others. So paragraph 55.11a of the Act defines a scheme of pyramid selling as those situations in which participants give consideration, including cash or any other benefit, to join an MLM plan and in turn have the right to receive consideration when others are recruited into the MLM plan. The terms recruitment bonuses and headhunting fees are often used to refer to such situations. And here is an example. So the circumstance, and by the way, there are a lot of examples for this one, so I'm not going to be going through every single one. Again, I will leave the link down, and if you feel like you want more information, you can come and read it, but I will go through some important ones here. So the circumstance of this one is an operator initiates an MLM plan in which a prospective participant pays $150 to be eligible to receive $50 for each person they recruit into the MLM plan, who would also be required to pay $150. This MLM plan falls within the definition of a scheme of pyramid selling because the participant receives $50, like directly, as compensation for each prospective participant they recruit. This will likely raise an issue under subsection 55.12 of the Act. The next example. An operator initiates an MLM plan in which prospective participants who have paid to join the MLM plan are required to recruit a certain number of other prospective participants into the MLM plan before they are eligible to receive compensation or attain a higher level of compensation. This MLM plan falls within the definition of a scheme of pyramid selling, as the MLM plan requires participants to pay to join the MLM plan and only provides the right to receive compensation when they recruit other prospective participants into the MLM plan. This will likely raise an issue under subsection 55.12 of the Act. And remember, it also says, or attain a higher level of compensation. Purchase requirements as a condition of participation. Pursuant to paragraph 55.11b of the Act, an MLM plan may not have as a condition of participating in the MLM plan a requirement to purchase a product at a price above the seller's cost. In addition, an MLM plan may not require existing participants to purchase products above cost in order to attain a higher commission or benefit level. Paragraph 55.11b allows a requirement to purchase products at the seller's cost for the purpose of facilitating sales. Accordingly, a plan is not likely to raise an issue under this paragraph if a participant is required to purchase a starter kit, manual, directives, product samples, promotional material at the seller's cost. An MLM plan may not have a requirement to purchase a product which is at a price above the seller's cost. This applies whether the purchase requirement is an explicit condition or an implicit de facto condition. In determining whether an MLM plan includes a requirement to purchase product, the Bureau considers factors including the following, and this is really important as well. So, whether sales are made to participants at a price that exceeds the seller's cost and are not accompanied by a commercially reasonable buyback guarantee. Whether the plan directly or indirectly promotes purchases of product by participants solely to achieve sales requirements or maintain compensation levels. Whether the plan requires the sale of product to receive compensation, reach a level of compensation, or maintain a level of compensation in the marketing plan, and if so, whether the purchase made by a participant are in commercially reasonable quantities given the nature of the product. The purchases made by a participant reflect sales that can be expected to be achieved over a reasonable period of time given the nature and price of the product, and the terms offered by the seller for the return of the product are commercially reasonable. Then, whether the product is meant for sale to non-participants of the plan, and the nature of the product involved in the plan, for example, tangible good, membership, etc. The Bureau will consider each MLM plan on a case-by-case basis in determining whether participants are required to purchase product to participate in the plan. While purchase requirements are likely to contravene this section, sales requirements involving the sale of a product or products to non-participants of the plan are not likely to contravene this section. So, for example, the circumstance is an operator establishes an MLM plan in which a participant, as a condition of entry, must purchase $75 of product samples at the seller's cost to allow the participant to demonstrate the operator's various products. And it says that this MLM plan is not likely to fall within the definition of a scheme of pyramid selling, as the product is purchased at the seller's cost to facilitate sales. If this is the case, there is not likely an issue under the Act. All right, this one's important. So the circumstance is an operator establishes an MLM plan promoting widgets. Participants have the option to purchase a training package at a price higher than the seller's cost. After purchasing a training package, a new participant gains the right to sell training packages to new participants. Participants receive a monetary bonus each time they sell a training package to another participant. This MLM plan appears to promote two products, widgets, and training. Participants who choose to sell training are required to purchase training themselves as a condition of participating in the training aspect of the plan and at a price higher than the seller's cost. The requirement to purchase an above-cost training package before a participant can sell training packages is likely to raise an issue under paragraph 55.11b. In addition, The compensation paid for the training package and the associated right to receive compensation for recruiting and training new participants, who may in turn pay for the same right, is likely to also raise an issue as a recruitment bonus under paragraph 55(11)(a). If the training package were sold at the seller's cost or participants were not required to purchase a training package in order to provide training, there would likely not be an issue under the Act. And my question is, how many companies do you know not make them go through the training first before providing it to others, if that's what they're selling, right? The circumstance for this one. An operator establishes an MLM plan that requires participants to sign up for a program in which a specified amount of the product, which is priced higher than the operator's cost, is automatically shipped and billed to participants on a monthly basis through an auto ship program. Remember, every single MLM company pretty much have an auto ship program and a minimum requirement in order to get paid. And many of them tell you to get the auto ship to meet it. Am I right? Listen to this. This MLM plan is likely to fall within the definition of a scheme of pyramid selling, as participants are required to purchase a specified quantity of the product on a monthly basis in order to participate in the MLM plan. And it works if you didn't have 80 PRV on auto ship, you didn't get paid. If this is the case, there is likely an issue under the Act. An optional auto ship program would generally not raise an issue under the Act. And this is where we get into the loopholes, where they try to make it sound like it's optional, and then we have to prove that it in fact isn't as we go forward. Inventory loading. Paragraph 55(11)(c) of the Act defines a scheme of pyramid selling as those situations in which an operator or a participant in an MLM plan supplies products to participants in amounts that he or she knows are commercially unreasonable. In other words, there can be no inventory loading. The amount considered commercially unreasonable is based on considerations such as the type of product, the selling price of the product, the size of the market, the number of participants, the number of competitors, and the sales history of the products. Buyback guarantee or right to return. Under paragraph 55(11)(d) of the Act, MLM plans must have a buyback guarantee or a right to return the product in saleable condition on reasonable commercial terms. Participants must also be informed of the buyback guarantee or right and how it can be exercised. Factors to be considered in determining what constitutes reasonable commercial terms include, but are not limited to, the type of product, the cost of the product, the condition of the product, whether the product is damaged or otherwise unsaleable, the commercial reasonableness of any limits on the number of times or the frequency in which a participant may return a product under the MLM plan, the number of days a participant has to return a product after purchasing it. A requirement to return a product within 30 days or more will generally not be considered commercially unreasonable. The percentage of the participant's cost refunded. Any consequences, including termination, if a participant returns product, and the product return policies of other companies offering similar products. The buyback guarantees of some MLM plans provide for the termination of participants who exercise their right to return product. The Bureau may consider the terms of a buyback guarantee commercially unreasonable if a return of product will result in termination. A return policy must not create an incentive for a participant to accumulate products rather than return them to the operator. However, termination on buyback will not be considered commercially unreasonable if A. The product return indicates the participant's intention to not continue in the plan. So, for example, if a participant returns a product that is required in order to participate in the plan and the required product purchase otherwise complies with Section 55.1 of the Act. B. The participant returns all product on hand. Or C. The product return constitutes an abuse of the return policy. For example, if a participant returns product with excessive frequency, or if the circumstances of a return suggest that the product was purchased with an intention to return it after qualifying for bonus compensation. As outlined below, one relevant area of potential concern relates to performance claims. Performance claims. That's the only real important part there, okay? Many MLM plans promote the supply or use of their products with representations about their performance or efficiency. Under paragraph 74.011b, the Act requires that any representation to the public in the form of a statement, warranty, or guarantee about the performance, efficiency, or length of life of a product be based on an adequate and proper test thereof. It is the applicant's responsibility to ensure that representations related to performance, efficiency, or length of life of the product are based on an adequate and proper test. The Bureau may exercise its discretion to refuse to provide a written opinion if it has concerns that the representations are not based on an adequate and proper test. So you wonder how some MLMs are around, huh? If a proposed MLM plan appears to raise an issue under other Canadian legislation, the Bureau may decline to issue a written opinion under the MLM plan provisions. In such circumstances, the Bureau may consult with the department or agency that administers the relevant legislation to determine whether it would be appropriate to issue an MLM written opinion. The Bureau may also notify the applicant of these concerns. Penalties. The penalties upon conviction for contravening the MLM plan provisions are set out in subsection 55.3 of the Act, and the penalties upon conviction for contravening the scheme of pyramid selling provisions are set out in subsection 55.13 of the Act. A person accused of an offense under subsection 2.1 shall not be convicted of the offense if the accused establishes that he or she took reasonable precautions and exercised due diligence to ensure that no representations relating to compensation under the plan were made by participants in the plan or by representatives of the accused, or that any representations relating to compensation under the plan that were made by participants in the plan or by representatives of the accused constituted or included fair, reasonable, and timely disclosure of the information referred to in that subsection. Any person who contravenes subsection 2 or 2.1 is guilty of an offense and liable A. On conviction on indictment to a fine in the discretion of the court or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 5 years or to both, or B, on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $200,000 or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 1 year or to both. That doesn't sound fun, huh? No person shall establish, operate, advertise, or promote a scheme of pyramid selling. Any person who contravenes subsection 2 is guilty of an offense and liable, A, on conviction of indictment, to a fine in the discretion of the court or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 5 years or to both, or B, on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $200,000 or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 1 year or to both. Appendix B, paragraph 206(1)(e) of the Criminal Code. (206(1), everyone is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years to E, conducts, manages, or is a party to any scheme, contrivance, or operation of any kind by which any person, on payment of any sum of money or the giving of any valuable security, or by obligating himself to pay any sum of money or give any valuable security, shall become entitled under the scheme, contrivance, or operation to receive from the person conducting or managing the scheme, contrivance, or operation, or any other person a large sum of money or amount of valuable security than the sum or amount paid or given, or to be paid or given by reason of the fact that other persons have paid or given, or obligated themselves to pay or give any sum of money or valuable security under the scheme, contrivance, or operation. And that, ladies and gentlemen, are the laws here in Canada surrounding multi-level marketing plans and pyramid schemes. So as you can see, I have been looking into how the new laws and regulations are created here in Canada, how we change the laws, how we can change the laws. But my plan going forward is I am going to be making a Facebook group, and in that group we are going to start to collect any evidence we have of any of the Canadian companies that are breaking the laws that we just went through, because we should be able to find numerous examples. Once we collect that data, then we can take it to the Competition Bureau and we can talk to them about how to better regulate these laws. And if we have a written up plan of how we think it should be, which we can all do up together, then we can take that to Parliament. As I mentioned, I am in Ottawa. I am going to get into more information about that in future. This video ended up being a lot longer than I expected, and due to that, I am going to be doing a part 2. I feel like we've taken in a lot of information right now, and next week I will release a video where I am going to go more deep into my plans. We're going to talk a bit and, already show some examples of companies that are breaking these laws. I'll show you some examples of, Canadian companies that have been breaking these laws and ones that break these laws from Canada. We can start to gather that data and take it from there. So, I hope you enjoyed my video on the Canadian MLM laws. I know it was a little bit dry. I just wanted to read the information. Please do give it a like and share it on your social media. I tried to make it so that this video could be shared even to those who are in MLM companies, and they should watch it so that they too can be aware of all of the MLM laws that are here in Canada. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye. Now, just to end off the video. Oh, Canada, our home and native land. No, I'm just joking. See you in the next one. Bye.